When people think about Australia, they usually think about endless beaches, pristine landscapes, and unique wildlife. The land down under that stands out for their incredibly vast inhabited space, their indigenous natives and their thousand-old culture, the faces that put it on a map, from art to wildlife, food culture, and natural wonders. I wanted to film a video about Australia, not only because I love this place, but also because I believe that the place where you choose to live is as important as any other relationships that you have in your life. And before you decide to move here, or before you decide to stay because maybe you just arrived, I wanted to give you all the information that you need to make a conscious decision. Because this place is majestic, but not everything that glitters is gold. This is my unfiltered and apologetic perspective on this beautiful country. I first landed here in 2011. October to be precise. And before I arrived here, I had no references at all. My only references were movies like Crocodile Dundee, the movies from Mel Gibson, Mad Max, and The Rescuer Down Under. The one that follows is 15 years of living here, in Perth specifically, condensed in the most concise and detailed video that I could deliver to you. And when I first landed here, it wasn't in the West Coast, it was in the East Coast, in a place close to Byron Bay called Mullumbimby. And it was funny to see that this place was quoted in Ozark in the TV series. There are only a few thousand people living there. And going from a city of 120,000 people, my town called Forlì, to a place this small, it felt like a massive shift. Because you can imagine that even when I was living in my town, I was going to high school and everybody knew everything happening to the people in the other high schools. So moving from a smaller place where there is a organic market and everybody know each other, it felt strange at first, but very good after. Since I arrived, so much changed, and not only in the structure of the cities that I visited, but also in costs. Because when I first came here, I applied for a working holiday visa, and back then it was 270 Australian dollars, and today is around 800. 840 for the first and 1,000 for the second and the third one. Back then, there was only the second one, but then I think the government figured out that they could attract a lot of people working for free in the farms and collect a lot of money as well. So here we have the third one. Back in 2011, the iPhone just came out and there were not as many apps as we have today. So in order to understand how to navigate through a continent this vast in a language that was not mine, the first thing I did was to buy a little book printed independently called Willing Workers on Organic Farm, WWOOF. And with this book, you could open the index and find different areas around Australia, each one with the details of every farmer that was willing to host you in exchange of accommodation and some food, providing that you were working for them. There was a detailed description of what was required for the work, how long you could have stayed in their place, and how many people they were hosting, all divided by states and different regions. And after a few weeks of researching, I found this spot, which in my opinion was the best spot I could pick. Eventually, me and my ex-girlfriend, we decided for Byron Bay, and more specifically, for a small town called Mullumbimby. The woman there was called Carrie Honor, and she had the most beautiful property. And from Byron Bay town center, it was around 30 minutes drive in the middle of the bush, in a hut that was built on a cliff that was looking right into the bush with nothing surrounding it. And the first 3 months of our experience in Australia, we spent it sleeping on a tent in front of a caravan in between the bush and the house of the owner, surrounded by dingoes at night because they were smelling the cows that were on the property, 2 of them, trying to understand how close they could get. I'm quoting here, according to what the owner said, they were trying to understand how close they could get, but also to train the young ones to kill and drag the calves into the bush. This howling was few meters, what it felt like few meters away from our tent. We started with doing jobs that in Italy, in my home country, we would never have done, like cleaning houses, digging holes around the houses, planting trees, spraying poison around the plants that needed to be killed, rescuing the cows from the bush, drinking from a big tank, collecting the rainwater and filtering it. When I came back home the first few months, I was looking into the glass and shaking the glass a little bit because I was used to worms being present in the water we were drinking and walking barefoot everywhere. And I learned at my own cost that in Australia there are any kind of dangerous animals, including ants. And there is one which is particularly nasty because regardless of the fact that they are 100 times smaller than you, they still attack you. And these are bulldog ants. So I got stung 5 times, once on the bottom of my foot, and for 3 days I couldn't walk because I wanted to walk barefoot. I wanted to embrace the Australian lifestyle. These things are hard to notice in the bush, and they jump. They make massive leaps up and down and forward. And you have to be careful because the poison is 10 times stronger than the one of a bee. The first 3 months were voluntary work, which means we were not getting paid apart from the food we were receiving and from hospitality in terms of bed where we could sleep. And this was counted as the 88 days that we were working in farms or eligible places from the book and the government to which you have to apply for applying for the second working holiday visa. And once you collected the days, you can demonstrate that you worked there with a signature from the owner, and then you can apply for a second working holiday, which allows you to stay 1 year in the country working with unlimited hours and studying for a maximum of 3 months, I think. The working holiday visa is the best possible visa. And in my first 6 months with that, I was able to earn 16,000 Australian dollars. And back in 2011 and 12, the Australian dollars was as much as the euro. I was working as a pizza chef, and every week I was earning around 1,580 dollars. That was my first wage actually, which was more than what my mom earned in 1 month as a qualified nurse for 30 years. This was in Perth, and this is how good it was here. But it wasn't all fun because the first thing, the most challenging thing when you move to a new country is to understand how things work, especially if you come from a country where the culture is different, is not Anglo-Saxon, and you speak a different language and you know 0 people. So you have to apply for jobs, to talk and to write in a different language, and you have to make connections and especially money as fast as you can. And it usually comes down to the very thing that works all over the world, to make connections, to expand your social circle and your network. Because in a place where you don't know anybody, talking with other like-minded people is the difference between being broke or getting opportunity where you get a lot of money out of it. And if you connect and you talk to people that are here with the same purpose as you have, stay in the country, make money, build a business, come back home with a lot of money and experience, or apply for a different visa, getting residency and citizenship, you will be talking only about this, and you will figure out ways that maybe it would take you hours or days or months to figure out, and to avoid mistakes especially. So as soon as you land, try to make as many valuable connections with like-minded people that you can. And the other thing is, depending on your language, if you're English, you are going to be fine. But if you are Italian, don't spend too much time with Italian at first. At the beginning it's fine, I understand you want to have a little bit of home far away from home, but on the long term it will damage you. So a little bit, let's say once every now and then will be good, because it will maintain your mental sanity. In a place where everything is different, maybe you miss your culture or your food or relatability. We will talk about this. But to spend most of your time with just Italians, it means that you will not merge with the culture. You will not be part of the culture. You will not start talking in the same way with a similar accent. You will not integrate as easily and as fast as you could. You will not learn English as fast as possible, which will damage you, will slow you down in the long term. I 100% assure you of that. When you first arrive here, you will need 3 things. The money to pay for a ticket, of course, because by boat to come to Perth is the most dangerous sea in the world. The second thing is the money to sustain yourself, because when you sign the visa, it says that you should have at least, and you should be able to demonstrate it, that you have at least 5,000 Australian dollars in your bank account to be able to sustain yourself. And the third thing is a ticket to fly out of the country. And actually, when I went to New Zealand for 1 year with some of my friends, as soon as we landed in Melbourne and we were heading to Auckland, they stopped us because we didn't have a return ticket, although the visa was still going on for Australia, the working holiday visa. So the officer told us, you're gonna book the flight here to get out of the country, otherwise you will not be allowed to step into New Zealand. And the same thing applies to Australia. They want to make sure you're gonna eventually leave the country, or have the means to leave the country with your financial support. And I actually know a person from a friend of a friend that is somewhere in Dunsborough and has been living there for 11 years with no visa, and is doing everything by cash. How interesting. I get anxious when I miss a payment. Imagine living life like this. I do not recommend it, because if you get caught, the sanctions will be high. Here they like to respect the laws, and also you will be banned from the country for at least 5 years that I know of. If you are single and you want to thrive here, not just survive, you need at least $1,000 a week. Given that you are living a healthy lifestyle, you're going to the gym, you go out once a week, and you want a bit of leisure, like going to the cinema, going out on a Saturday, maybe a drink if you drink, I don't. Let's say that the spending is around $600 to $700 a week. You have to consider that you will have a car maybe, and is going either to fuel or to a smart rider card for transportation. You're paying rent, which is an average of $300 to $400 a week. Maybe an insurance, although you don't really need a private insurance here. I don't have a private insurance because when you become citizen, you will have Medicare, which gives you access to the basics of your healthcare system. Grocery, which is around $80 to $150 depending on what you get. Right now I'm spending $120 a week by buying real food. So organic, fresh fruit and vegetables and beans and grains and some nuts. That's it. But if you want to add steaks to this, it will increase. If you want to add some excursions in the weekend, you have to add the fuel for it and maybe some booking. So I say at least $600 to $700 just to survive. To live comfortably, maybe $1,000 to $1,400, which stands around $75,000 to $100,000. And considering Western Australia is the richest state, you're gonna be fine here. As long as you learn the rules of the game and you make as many connections, valuable connections as you can.
Guess how rare that is? It's not 1%. 1%.
But as long as you learn the rules of the game, I was saying before, Alex Hormozzi stopped me, you're gonna be fine. You make as many valuable connections as you can. And compared to Europe, and especially Switzerland, where I was living for 6 months until January, you don't need certificates left and right. And here, the human factor plays a bigger impact than in other countries like Switzerland, where everything has to be precise. Here, if you have a good connection, a lot of doors will open for you. By the way, when I was talking about $300 to $400, I meant a room in a share house. If you want a whole house by yourself, the prices have been inflating like crazy in the last 5 years because of COVID, because of the money printing. But right now, you're looking probably at $800 for a flat by yourself. And for a room, anything between $250 to $450, depending on where you're renting. And most of the time, the bills are excluded. So you have to calculate these in how much money you need. On top of these, you have to calculate that you will need internet. You will need to be able to make calls and text. And the best company I found so far for going on adventure sometimes or living in remote areas is Telstra. And right now, I think I'm getting 50 gigabytes a month with some calls and text for around $65 a month, which is doable. Right now, I'm living in a house, looking after the house and the cat and the plants for some friends. And I'm using my own hotspot, which runs out pretty quickly. So I do not recommend this. Unlimited internet in the house would be very beneficial if you're using your computer, your connections, and Netflix or whatever a lot. In 2021, I went up to Kalbarri, which is 1,000 kilometers north of Perth. I had another company from Telstra, and the reception was terrible. And this town is away from everything. It's 1,500 inhabitants on the coast. And you have to drive from Geraldton, I think, 1 hour and a half without meeting anything at all on the way. It's very isolated. So if you have Telstra and there are antennas around, which is the reason why Telstra works so well, is because there are antennas in the middle of nowhere as you travel across Australia, you will be fine. If you have Vodafone or any other, you will have some issues connecting to the internet, making calls or sending messages. To make one of these, all it takes is to go in a shop anywhere, 15-20 minutes, and somebody will set it up for you. And if you're lucky, you can even choose your number. When you land here the first time, you will need just a few things. A telephone number, which we covered already, Telstra, I recommend it. A bank account, which you need to book an appointment and then show up and then decide which bank you want to go in. And back in 2012, they were giving a lot of interest on the money you were holding. So when I first came here, I transferred 21,000 euros into here. And back then the change was the best thing ever, because when I transferred everything, I got $28,000 and I felt like the smartest person in the room. And then I didn't realize that the Australian dollar was at its peak, and then it dropped till 65 cents in 2022. 2021, which means my money just evaporated because of the change eventually, because I kept it in the bank account. But when you move in, you open a bank account, you transfer everything or whatever you need to cover expenses, and you will be fine. Simple as a few days for the transfer, for the wait, and somebody's looking after you. The bank I chose is ANZ, and if you want to start a business as a freelancer, the one thing I like to do is to open 2 bank accounts in 2 different banks, because I do not want my first bank to know everything about my business, literally. So I used to have Commonwealth for my business, freelancing, ANZ for my personal account. The other very important thing is a tax file number, and this you will need it for everything. If you want to work, you will need a tax file number, and it will be the same from the moment you open one to the moment you come back to Australia eventually later. You can take 2 years break and it will still be the same. And if by any chance you don't remember what your number is, you just have to go to MyGov portal and you find all the information there about your taxation, your visa situation, and your tax file number, TFN. Health insurance, that's an extremely important thing, because being in a country without health insurance is calling for trouble. I met a guy that was at the gym lifting something, and eventually some weight fell on his arm and he snapped the arm in half. He didn't have any health insurance. He had to go for surgery straight away, and he spent $8,000 on the operation. I know another person that she was driving the motorcycle. She was so tired that she skipped a red crossing light and she crashed into a car. She broke one of these arms, I don't remember, but rather than going to the hospital, which have cost her maybe $10,000, she booked a flight, she flew back to Italy, and she got the surgery there. If you want to avoid any of these situations, make sure that you get a health insurance. And as Italians, we are extremely blessed, because we get, with the working holiday visa specifically, we get 6 months of health insurance. And if you want to renew your health insurance, back in the day, you had to check if this is still active. You just had to leave the country, step back in, and then reapply for 6 more months. And this was as simple as going to Bali if you are in the West Coast, or going to Fiji, New Zealand, or New Caledonia if you are in the East Coast. If you are on any other visa, like a student visa, or you're applying for residency, it is compulsory to have a health insurance. So you will have to do one. And for me, I chose Bupa back in the day, but there are plenty of services for which you can check the amounts that you will spend and what is granted to you. And you don't have to go to a branded one, like choosing Nike rather than choosing another shirt because there is no logo. There are way cheaper options as long as you maintain one. And if you are considering not getting one, I don't have one right now, you have to consider also the blind spots. You're thinking, I don't get sick. If you're earning more than $101,000 actually, the government is taxing you anyway 1% to give your money to the health insurance. So your money eventually is going somewhere. Also, if you find yourself in the situation where you are unconscious or you are in danger, like I almost drowned in 2021, and an ambulance comes, they will charge you $1,000. And if you have the insurance, they give you the money back. But if you don't, you have to pay cash. A few other things that are extremely important when you land, but they're not necessary straight away. A superannuation fund, so basically where you collect what the employer is depositing in your retirement funds. You can either go with a company superannuation fund or having one of your own where you are collecting everything from different jobs, which I recommend because it's easier to organize and easier to remember. But also here you have to look at the prices, because different superannuation funds are charging different fees, and you don't want to spend so much money for somebody to manage your superannuation money. And you look at the alternative and you're spending 30% less, which allows you to collect more every single month. The second thing is a smart rider car, which allows you to take any kind of transportation in Perth specifically. If you go to Sydney or Melbourne, they will have different things similar to this. But basically with this I can go on a train, on a ferry to cross from North Perth to South Perth, and buses as well. And the cool thing about this is you don't have to do the tickets all the time, and you have a discount on the price of the basic ticket, the paper ticket. So they incentivate you to do the card. It costs $5 or $10 to do it, plus the charge you put in. And you can set the auto renewal, which basically when you're running out of money, it auto renews and charges your bank account and he gets the money on the card. Medicare has to be done as soon as you arrive because this is the government insurance, and depending on your nationality they will grant you different lengths in health coverage. For Italians, for example, because we have bilateral agreements, we have 6 months with a working holiday visa, then you go out of the country, you come back in and you have 6 more months. I don't know if this is still in place, please check it. But as soon as you apply for Medicare as an immigrant, you have some coverage with your health insurance. I don't know how long it is for different nationalities. I can put it here. And when you become resident or citizen, you can apply for Medicare again. But these just cover the basics. If I get private insurance, let's say I pay around $120 a month, but I can choose 3 things that get discounted the moment I use them. And for me it was a chiropractor, physiotherapist, and dentist. And whenever you go to these professionals, you know that you have discounts. So instead of paying $60 for 15 minutes at a chiro, you pay 45 because the insurance gives you money back. But you have a limited cap of the amount of times you can go every single month. For example, chiro will be 5 or 6 times, and dentist will be one big lump of services, $1,500, and so on, depending on your insurance and how much you pay. And if you really want to excel, the one thing to do is an international driving license or the Australian license. And I did it the other day and it cost me $170 for 5 years. And then you don't have any stress anymore. Licenses are based on different regions, different parts of Australia. So one that you make here is going to be valid all over the place, but if you move to a different region, you will have to change the plate and update your license within few months of living there. The wages here are very attractive. There was a boom in 2009 till 2011 and 12, and Perth was one of the top places in the world for self-made millionaires. Most of it comes from the fact that there are mines, and Western Australia and Australia in general is exporting most of what they dig from the ground, like iron ore or gold or copper, to China with these massive contracts. Working in the mines means that you're earning something like $2,500 to $3,500. I know a guy that used to earn $1,000 every single day working on a rig in the middle of the ocean. Now, this is not for everybody because you spend 20 days there and then you come back for 1 week and then you're back. So it's a different lifestyle that I would embrace, but you can make a lot of money. And the other thing is, because the very small percentage of the population is making so much money, everything here costs a lot, including the houses. And there was a massive spike, a massive increase of the cost in houses in the last 5 years, not only because they printed a lot of money, 35% of money in circulation, but also because here people earn so much and the housing market has been growing way too fast compared to the increase in wages. Also, the demand is extremely high and there are not too many houses, or that's what the media and the real estate market is saying. As a result of this massive boom, the housing market was excruciating painful even in 2011, because when I first arrived in Perth in 2012, I first arrived with my girlfriend in 2011. We came back home after 9 months, and then I came back on my own. Actually with a friend, but he stayed 19 days and then he left. And then I was on my own in Sydney for a month, and I came to Perth around Christmas Day. And then I worked in a restaurant called Cottesloe Beach Hotel, and this was my first job in the West Coast. And it's a place where I ended up working for 7 years. But when I first arrived here, it was a struggle to find a place where to stay, because everybody was charging a crazy amount of money. I ended up staying in a flat for 7 years. I was managing this flat and another flat for my landlord at the time. And there were 2 bathrooms and 3 bedrooms. And inside of this flat, there were 9 girls living in there, paying around $950 every single week. And when I went to New Zealand with my friends in 2013 and I came back in 2014, the flat was rented for $550 and she could not rent it for more. All in a sudden, the real estate market dropped. And right now the same is happening, because a lot of people are looking for a house, and whenever you go to an opening house looking for a place to rent or a place to buy, you will often find 20, 30, 40 more people looking at the same place. And here you can place anonymous bids and you don't know how much the other person bids, so you are trying to raise the price up, not even knowing which one is the cap and not knowing if you're getting the place. Things unfortunately went full circle and we came back to the same situation as in 2011, where renting is way much much worse. The amount of available places is way lower than before. Just to give you a practical real-life scenario, at the end of 2021, my girlfriend and I were looking for a place to stay. We applied left and right. Nobody accepted us because we were a couple, and things didn't work out in the end. So I set up my car completely, and we decided to travel all around Australia for 21,000 kilometers for 11 months because we could not find a decent place at a reasonable price here in Perth. And when we came back, the situation was still the same after 1 year. So I don't see this going away anytime soon unless there is another burst like in 2008. And the funny thing is that even hostels took notice, and now they are charging way more than before. And most of them, they are at full capacity, collecting money like crazy. So if you own a hostel right now, chapeau, you saw it coming and you're eating good. To give you an example, I was living in this 3 bedrooms apartment with 2 bathrooms that I was telling you about that I managed for 7 years. And back then I was renting each room for $180 to $200 each. Right now, a room like that will be $300 to $350. And I'm talking about small rooms with bunk beds or with a queen size bed and a private bathroom. So a master room with private bathroom, probably $350, $400 a week. But if you bought a house before 2020 and you hold it, it probably doubled in price, which means that if you bought for 50 and you paid mortgage for 30 years, or you had different houses, now the value of your house is 100 or 150, you can sell it for way more. But what people don't understand is that they printed 30 to 35% of money in circulation. So it's not the prices of the houses that grew, it's the money that lost value. The good thing I always loved about Perth is that it felt like a village that expanded too fast. So you have very few degrees of separation. And at some stage when I was going out a lot and I was working part-time, it felt like you can literally know everybody. If you walk the same roads every day, you see a lot of people. If you hang out in specific places, you make a lot of connections. And it's very easy to talk to somebody and say, oh, my friend told me about you. So few degrees of separation. And if you move from Perth to Fremantle, which is a little neighborhood in the south, is the hippie area, the spiritual area of Perth. This feeling will intensify even more because there you can find a lot of communities, things about spirituality and playing instruments and ecstatic dance. It's very close to the beach as well. You find amazing restaurants with healthy food. There is a farmer's market where I go to every Sunday, which I really enjoy because you have stuff from Margaret River, which is a region down south, which delivers fruit and vegetables that are non-sprayed with anything. And you have an organic section, certified organic, where you can buy the most amazing fruit and potatoes, sweet potatoes that I ever tried. Amazing. You pay a little bit more, but it's definitely worth your money. And you have this relaxed vibe, while where you are in Perth, everybody's rushing, everybody's focused, like a little New York. But then you go in Fremantle and people are walking slowly. They are taking their time to chat and they gossip in the queue and they connect with others. They stop to say hi, ask how is your day. And you see the walking pace is completely different. And just the vibe of it. You see graffitis everywhere. There are little shops selling you organic stuff or natural things. There is a shop I found the other day just about essential oils. There is a Fremantle's market where is this enclosed space with all these markets with all the kind of food you can think about and organic clothing with cotton and wool. It's just fantastic to walk around on a Saturday and Sunday and just take your time. And plenty of gelato shops so you can make strategic tactical stops. But the cool thing about this place in general is that there is this kind relaxed vibe that permeates everything. You go anywhere and people are taking things slowly, and the more of it even in Fremantle. So you can decide to be here. I think to some extent you age slower, because whenever I come back to Italy, everybody's rushing for 2 dimes and a voucher, and they don't have time. And here you can work full time and you don't have time either, but you still have days like this. This is winter. Come on, this is winter. Literally. And you walk around and you meet people, you chat to everybody, everybody's nice. It's like Japan, but a bit less. Maybe they don't come out of the shop to show you things, but everybody's kind. And because you have so much sun, I guess it sets the mood in a different way. Not only because you can go anywhere outside and people are so self-conscious about their body because they always see their body, right? So it's always exposed to the look. So whenever you get a little bit fat, you start exercising again. It's also sunny, so you can go out and have a class of yoga in the park. When it's spring, spring and summer it gets beautiful here. And if you don't mind a little bit too hot, maybe in February and January it can get to 40-45 degrees. There are some days, let's say in October, November, where the weather is just perfect and you see everybody training outside and running and exercising and being fit and beautiful. And because of these, I don't know if it's the egg or the chicken, the environment changes. The shops that are cooking just shitty food, nasty stuff, they're gonna be wiped out because people are demanding more healthy food. And there are a lot of healthy options here. There are a lot of shops selling in bulk organic stuff or legumes and grains and honey. The honey here is fantastic. I think I consumed 1 kilo of honey every 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah. When I came back in April, I was trying to find a specific job. I got offered different jobs, but I rejected one in a childcare as a cook, and then one as a pizza chef for $95,000, but I didn't want to come back to the kitchen. And I was sending emails left and right, but there was a situation happening with males in the East Coast, unfortunately, and people are a bit cautious about hiring men in childcares. But I got the job I wanted. I got a fantastic job. I got 2 offers for 2 of the best places in Perth, in my opinion. One in a university and the other one is a Reggio Emilia inspired center, and I picked one. It took me 2 months and a half, sending emails left and right. The beauty of this is that you talk to people, you go to places and you introduce yourself, and word of mouth will get you anywhere. You just have to be kind and remember names and make a good impression and show your face. And as I said, everybody know each other, so you will get plenty of recommendation here. I have a 10 plus years experience as a pizza chef first and then chef later. I qualified in 2021, self-recognizing through an entity my skills. And to find a job in hospitality it took me 3 days maximum. That's the worst I ever got, because there are plentiful jobs and because everybody know each other in the industry, right? The degree of separation is very thin. And if you work in a good way in a place, everybody will know about this. Word of mouth will spread and a lot of doors will open. But if you leave a place slamming the door, you are not good at your job, you come out late, you make a lot of mistakes, and you answer back and you're unpolite, people will know that as well. And it will be very hard to work in the same industry ever again. So it's a double-edged sword. You have to decide what energy you put out and the energy that you will get back in. I love this place, Australia, Perth specifically. This place is beautiful not only because you see the bay. In the morning or when it's low tide, you can walk right in the middle there. You see? But I checked and tomorrow morning was not, it was high tide, so I cannot go. But I was saying that I love this place because you can reinvent yourself as many times as you want. I know of people with high degrees that they get bored and they change career completely. You have universities everywhere and they are easily accessible. It's quite expensive, like USA. There's the same private institutions where you pay $30, $40, $50,000 a year. If you are just arrived, if you are an immigrant, you have to pay upfront every 3 months, I think. But if you are a citizen, if you study, let's say, to be a doctor, you are only forced to pay if you find the same job in the same industry and you start earning a certain amount of money. Otherwise, you don't have to pay. So the moment you get citizens, so many more doors will open up for you. But before that, things are expensive and things are challenging, including the kind of paperwork it will take you to apply for residency first, and then citizenship will be pretty much the same, just a second time. And then for passport is super smooth. $150, I think, and you apply for citizenship ceremony, and $400 for the passport. Australian passport is the most expensive passport in the world. The good thing is that it opens a lot of doors around the world. The one thing I recommend is whenever you arrive here, pay somebody. To pay a professional is always the shortcut to a better place, usually, and faster. And structure your CV based on whatever you're looking for. Do not self-sabotage yourself. When I came here first, I pretended to be a pizza chef. I entered in a kitchen first in Sydney. They told me to fuck off and get out of the fucking kitchen. And then I said I will never try again. But then out of need, and I was 23 back then, I walked out in a restaurant in Cottesloe Beach Hotel, a massive restaurant, the busiest restaurant at the time probably. And I applied for a job through Gumtree, which is a search engine for work and things to buy and sell here in Australia. And they contacted me and I had a trial with an Italian guy. And as soon as I started opening a pizza, because it's very easy to see in cooking how you do things, how you hold the hands and the knife and how you move your hands. The pizza chef told me, I can see you can't do anything at all. You can't do shit for me. But I don't speak any English and you don't know how to cook. So let's make a trade. And for 6 months, we taught each other everything we could. And from that moment, I started calling myself a pizza chef. Pizza chefs earn a lot of money. They have horrible hours. You finish late. You breathe a lot of flour. You are in front of the heat when it's 53 degrees in front of the oven and 40 degrees outside. You will feel the sweat rolling behind your knees or behind your neck, but it's a good job and you can find jobs very easily. I went to New Zealand and in 3 days I had a job in Auckland. It's a good job to start with, and then you can sneak in and pretend to be a chef and learn the trade again. And again, good jobs, you eat for free, long hours, but good money as well. And you learn something that when you walk away, when you are burned out, when you are tired of doing this job, you walk away and you can cook for yourself, which is not only feeding yourself, it's transforming food into chemistry that goes inside of your body. And of course you have to learn what the food is transformed into and how to mix the food together. But if you pretended to be a chef and you made it so far, you can do that as well. My point here is if you want to be a programmer, don't hold yourself thinking I'm not a programmer, I want to be a programmer, I don't have the skills. Spend all your free time for 6 months learning the trade, learning the basics, Java or Python, whatever. And then contact all the companies, show up your face there and say, I can provide much more value to your company than any other people here if you're willing to teach me. And you will not have to repeat anything to me twice. And I know a story from Humans of New York where this guy, 19 years old, enters in a Jewish jewelry in New York, and he asks for work and they laugh at him. He becomes serious with his friend close to him, ashamed because of they laughed at them. And he becomes serious and he said, if you knew who I work for, you wouldn't be laughing. And they stopped laughing and they hired him. So wear some confidence and all the doors will open up for you. Visas, and this is a big topic, and I'm glad that is a chapter of my life that is completed, because the amount of paperwork and contacting and collecting you have to do is really soul draining, like that scene in Harry Potter where he's standing close to the lake, that kind of soul draining. But if you're coming here, it's possibly that you came with a working holiday visa, and then if you want to stay longer, you have a second option of second working holiday and then third working holiday. And in my opinion, apart from the fact that you want to travel around or you want to grow a lot of money, which you can, or some experience, it's outside of these areas is a waste of time. Because if you want to stay here, sure, making money is amazing, but either find yourself a sponsor or find yourself a partner. And if I had to go back after applying 3 times, first with a company which I walked away from, second with a company for which I paid, and after 1 month COVID hit and I lost all the application and the money of the application, and third after self-sponsoring myself with a visa called 190, I would definitely go with a partner. Not only because the partner can fuck you over like the company, but he can talk to the partner and he doesn't see you like numbers and profits and margins to make. He can show you more empathy than a company. That's what I'm saying. And the second thing is whenever there is an opportunity, don't wait. Don't wait, because opportunities go very fast. They come very fast and they go very fast. And the example I can give you here is I studied for 2 years, certificate 3 and diploma as a childcare educator. And then I had this beautiful visa called 187, which allowed you to find a place, get sponsored, you get residency immediately, but you have to stay 2 years in the same place until your residency is finalized and granted for real. And then you can walk away from the place the second day that your residency is granted. And I was, how do I say this? I was fucking around. I was enjoying dating left and right, living the life of a rock star. And hospitality, in my opinion, since you could only work for 45 hours every fortnight, I think it is now, as a student, I was thinking, well, hospitality maximizes my earnings and I just have to work 2 days where I can make $700 to $800. So it's perfect. If I work in childcare 2 days, I will not be able to save money or to sustain myself. This was the reasoning behind. I was just saying, hard choices, simple life, simple choices, hard life. Well, you learn your lesson. So I did hospitality for 2 or 3 years while I was studying childcare education. I was working Saturday and Sunday because they pay more. And then when it was time to find a sponsor, I couldn't find it. I did my internship for diploma in childcare. At the end of the 6 weeks, they told me, sorry, we're not sponsoring. Oh, surprise. Now I have a few weeks left of my visa. I came back to hospitality. And then they all ordeal started. And I came back to hospitality in October. In March 2017, they removed the 187, so I could not have applied anymore. And then I stayed in hospitality for 4 or 5 more years, spending a lot of money, spending a lot of time, setting bags. Eventually, I started working in childcare again in 2023, which I missed because it's lower pace. I enjoy, I love to go to bed at 10 p.m. now. And in hospitality, you are cleaning the kitchen at 10 p.m. And definitely, you're not ruining your joints and your back. You're not breathing toxic stuff all the time, oxidized canola oil and chemicals. And it's a more empathetic job, which requires a lot of patience and social intelligence, which is very aligned to the kind of transition I made throughout my life. And now I develop, I think, PTSD on kitchen environments because I tried again in Switzerland and the universe presented itself with a guy from Rome, which was my head chef, which was a very nasty professional, probably a beautiful human being, but nasty professional. And after 1 month, I walked away from the job. And I never quit a job before like that. But I couldn't take it anymore. My nervous system was all over the place. This came from missing that one opportunity of growing some experience and trust in a childcare, enough for them to sponsor you for 2 years on a 187. Here there is a soul list, which is a skilled occupational list. And every 6 months they can update it. So since 2011, a lot of things have changed. Pizza chef was in the list when I arrived in 2011. They removed it. And then every 6 months, depending on the requirements they have on the country, they can either introduce or remove occupations. And in 2021, when I applied for chef, self-sponsoring myself for 190, I had to be recognized that I was a chef, so I had to collect 5 years worth of pay slips, and then I had to go through an external entity to recognize my skills. So providing a menu that I created, some visual video proof of me chopping stuff and creating the menu, and then a video live interview where I was answering a set of questions for 30 minutes. And then I was granted the certificate for $5,500, yes, for a piece of paper. And now I'm a qualified chef. In the sole list in 2021, there were a lot of medical and technical professions, engineers, doctors, medical professions, and then there was chef. The only thing you needed to do is 5 years of full-time pay slips, which I had to collect both from Australia and New Zealand. And I had to send so many emails and trace back people that were living in the middle of the countryside in New Zealand. And I felt like a detective. And this was the most stressful period of my life because my stay in the country depended on that. The advice I had to give you here is back then I missed a massive opportunity that set me back 2 years, if not 3 in my life. It means losing time. The mistake was being proud. So somebody asked me if I knew what I was doing, and I said yes, because I was angry. I was extremely angry. And I said yes, and I was lying. And instead I didn't know what I was doing. And the question was about visa, if I knew what it implied for my visa. Instead I should have gotten a migration agent, pay them. It would have simplified my life so much. Saved me 3 years of my life with less money in my bank account, but the one thing that millionaires and billionaires do when they have a lot of money is to buy their time back. So this tells you something about time. It's finite and it doesn't come back. Make sure you get yourself a good migration agent. And by good, it means they've been in the business for 10, 15, 20 years. They have a lot of positive feedback and they can show proof of all the people they positively impacted the life on. And their record is spotless. And I'm saying this because there was a company called Mason Migration, which a friend went with and almost convinced me to go with. And when it was time to do his visa, he applied and he paid the money. And after 3 or 4 months, he called and they said vague things. So he called the government with the reference number and his application wasn't even lodged. So after a bit of digging, he discovered a few months after that the owner of the company, without the employees knowing apparently, ran away to Sri Lanka with the money of 81 customers that applied with their life savings probably in order to stay in the country. And my friend, I just know about my friend, had to leave to Norway where he had a job opportunity, come back to Europe and then reapply from outside, spending a lot of time, 1 year, and a lot of money to come back into the country. So make sure you get a very good professional to shortcut your transition from immigrant to resident and citizen. I lied to you because there are few different ways to come to Australia. You can be a PhD or a profession that is highly regarded here in Australia and they want you. You can be sponsored by a company, even from overseas. You start something here, so you create a company or a business by investing a lot of money. And last time I checked, it was at least $500,000. And now with inflation and everything, I'm sure it would be more. Or you invest in land. You buy real estate or pieces of land and you're granted specific visas. But the best options, in my opinion, are if you are not qualifying as a highly regarded skills or professions, is to either get into a partnership with somebody you trust, not somebody that is after your money, and be sponsored by a company. So after I sponsored myself, this was after COVID 2022, I learned my lesson here and I gathered all the documents I could as fast as I could. And I could apply for 190 because Perth was seen as a regional area, I think. Every region has different legislations and saying on the visas. So I gathered all the documents I could, I applied, and I got into a bridging visa within 6 weeks. And after 9 months, residency arrived. And this moment, I swear, my body felt like it went boom, like this, and all the weight dropped. And after, everything turned colorful again, like the movie Pleasantville. And I felt so light. And my level of stress completely dropped, disappeared, like an old memory. And then going from there to citizenship was super easy. Back then we were traveling around Australia. We were about to go to Tasmania actually, and they called us back. So they called me and I said, can I move that to Hobart, to Tasmania, so I can attend the citizenship ceremony there? And they said, no, if you book it in Perth, you have to come back to Perth. So I went back to Perth. My ex-girlfriend left. A friend of mine came with me because you can invite 2 or 3 people to the ceremony, and we attended the ceremony together. She took some good photos, and all you have to do is attend the ceremony, follow some instructions where you say specific things that they tell you to say. I don't want to spoil it for you. There will be time if you decide to stay here, but it's something nice. It makes you feel like you became part of something and you finally made it. Some friends from Italy sent me a balloon and some flowers. They organized it through a business here in Perth, and they interrupted the ceremony just for me.
The second announcement, Lucas Semprini. Look out, there's a gift for you just at the end here. There's a gentleman holding some flowers.
Because somebody delivered the flower and the balloon. It was a very special day, and I recommend everybody to do the right steps to get to there, because yeah, you feel like you're part of a community now. Yeah. Although I still have my accent, but still. The other thing about the visa is that they cost a lot of money. I spent $5,500 to be certified as a chef, and then $7,500 to reapply for the visa. And I say at the end of this trials and error, which was my mistake, 100%, my responsibility, it was around $35,000. But if you are taking a professional from the very first day, maybe I'd say you pay 15 to 20,000 right now. And there are different costs, and they are updating all the costs because a lot of people is coming, but they're making it a bit more difficult. So if you are going in a partnership visa, for example, it's going to be $12,500, something like this. If you're studying, you have the cost of the visa plus the cost of the school, and you have to figure out for yourself what is best for you to do. But if you go to a migration agent, it will give you all the items, all the journeys that you are gonna work through, and with each one of them, all the specific costs and when exactly they will potentially change the rules of the soul list or the requirements and so on. So you know all the blind spots beforehand, and this will save you a lot of time and money. If you come here and you want to make money and you want to stay longer, you have to be prepared, because as a working holiday you can work unlimited amount of hours and you can really raise a crazy amount of money here, especially if you go work in the mines. If you are a student, there's mixed feelings there, because when you're studying, before it was 40 hours every fortnight and now it's 48 hours every fortnight. But if you're not studying and you go on a break from school in Christmas leave or any other holidays, you are allowed to work unlimited amount of hours. So in restaurants, for example, during Christmas break, we used to have dishwashers working 60 to 70 hours a week, because all in a sudden they can gather as much money as they can before they have to go back to school. And the reason why you want to collect as much money as you can is because when it's time to apply for a visa or for higher education, for example a college like I did, you will want want to have money saved up, because if you need to grow your money while you're working as a student, it's going to be very hard unless you work for cash, you win the lotto, or you do illegal stuff. Because let's do the math. I came into the country, I applied for the student visa, which is maybe $1,000, and then my certificate 3 as a early learning childcare educator cost me $5,500 the first year, $9,500 the second year, which makes around $16,000 that I paid. 16,500 actually. So if you have to save those money from working 40 hours every fortnight, the math doesn't math. So it's better if you save as much money as you can before. The other thing is, luckily they change how things work, because when I was under a sponsor, if you stop working for somebody and you did 13 months working for them under a sponsor visa, you were losing 13 months. And now if for any situation the company goes bankrupt, or you decide that it is a toxic environment and you want to change, those months will be counted as cumulative months. So if you move within the same industry, for example as a chef, you move to another restaurant and you need 24 months to complete the sponsorship, now you just need 11 months to go, while before you were losing 13 months of your life. Eventually they understood that it was happening so many times that they had to adjust to it, luckily, because the time you waste is not coming back. And I'm telling you this because it happens more often than you can think, and I have at least 3 to 4 friends which went through this situation where they had to apply for a new visa, pay a lot of more money, or leave the country and come back into the country after applying from outside, because they had exactly this situation happening. The company selling without telling them, the company going bankrupt without informing them, and the company firing them for a reason or the other, and them losing all the stuff. Or like it happened to me, the company forcing to decide to either work as a slave or live for your own mental health. Australia is literally the epicenter of freedom. Here you can do whatever you want, dress the way you want, and nobody will tell you anything, especially if you go in Fremantle, which is south of Perth. If you go a little bit outside of the cities, you see everybody walking barefoot. And I learned my lesson when I went to Mullumbimby. You see people dressing up in strange ways and walking barefoot into the bank. And you're thinking, where did I land here? It's in the mindset of people, and it's beautiful because we live with so many reservations. And I'm not saying this is the norm. Of course, you will see people conform heavily everywhere, even here. But there is this kind of relaxed vibe and undergoing feeling that you can really transform your life anytime you want here. You just have to take the right steps, and anything is possible. It's like the American Dream 2.0. Considering that I came to Perth in 2011 and there was nothing here. It was really a settlement. The skyline changed within 2 years I came back from New Zealand. There was no Elizabeth Quay, which is the bay in Perth that now they built spending $1 billion. It wasn't there. In 2011 and 12, backpackers were sitting on a grass, and now they excavated everything. They allowed the water coming in again. They built so many things, including a bridge, a ferry that is transporting people across the river, and skyscrapers and buildings they are selling, and hotels. There is everything now. If you look at the photos from 20 years ago, this place is unrecognizable because you were taking the bus or the train and there was nothing around. They built so many neighborhoods. So the people that came here in 1950 and 60s, they were given land for free as long as they were farming it. These people now, they are very wealthy individuals because those pieces of lands, maybe now they are in the wheat belt, which is the area where they are all the farmers, or they just have settlements that now they're worth millions and millions of dollars. So to be early was definitely an advantage, but you can still make it. People are still living a good life here, earning good money. Just think about the fact that the moment you become a citizen here, you can apply for a service that the government provides, where they train you with everything you need to know to start your own business, your ABN number and so on, and they pay you, I think it's $250 a week in order to promote you starting and continuing the business. Taxation. And I would lie to you if I told you that taxes here are individual friendly, because Australia is one of the top taxed place in the world where things get taxed multiple times, groceries for example. And although I come from a country where taxation is very heavy, if you have a business you are taxed as much as 69%, I think, which means that until August you're working for the government. Here there are brackets, so until $100,000 I think you pay an average of 33%. The first $18,000 here are not taxed, but I don't know if you could live comfortably with $18,000 a year. And then there are very sneaky things here and there. For example, if you decide not to have a private insurance and you earn more than $100,000, the government taxes you 1% and it gives those money to the private insurances. But I think the situation is the same all over the world. The governments do not want you to become rich and to maintain your wealth. And the first example that comes to mind is Norway put in an exit tax. So when they issued a law for capital gains, people started leaving the country because living in the country was not favorable for them anymore. And then when they noticed that there was a big exodus of millionaires and billionaires, they put an exit tax. And here there was a discussion about unrealized capital gains, which is the most stupid thing ever. They are taxing the poor basically, which means that if you invest on Amazon stocks $1 and it goes to $10, now they're taxing $9 even if you don't sell the stock, which to me is just mean, evil. Yeah, should be your right to be able to grow wealth. So there was a discussion for this law to be passed, but I don't think it was because there was a bit of backlash. If you are a solo trader or you have a solo business, you pay up to 45% when you sell your business. If you have a company, I think it's a newly introduced law which sets it at 35% when you sell your business. And this was not very welcome from business owners, because imagine working for 20-30 years on your business and then you sell the company and the government claims a big chunk of it, 1/3 of it for themselves. Weather. And this is the one thing that kept me coming back to Perth, because here there are 330 days of sun a year. And based on where you decide to live in Australia, there will be different time zones and different weathers. If you go to Darwin, for example, they just have 2 seasons, the hot dry and the hot wet. In Perth, winter is like this. It's a bit windy today. I think this is one of the top 5 or 6 cities in the world for wind. Chicago, I think, is number 1 or 2, and then there is Wellington. But winter is like this, and in my country is usually foggy and snowy and rainy and very cold, to the -Celsius sometimes. And here you have beautiful days of sun even in winter. And again, I'm sure it sets you in a specific mood and it helps you to thrive physically as well, because you are receiving so much sun, right? If you go in Northern Europe, I say they're not as happy and friendly as here. So based where you want to live, you get different experiences. If you want the European 4 seasons in a day kind of weather, you go to Melbourne. If you want the hot tropical weather, you go either in Cairns or in Darwin. And if you want sun all over the year, it's great, but you have to consider that without rain, not too much grows, and growth is independence as well. So if you want to have a patchy garden and grow your food and fruit and vegetables, maybe you need a bit of rain, because I used to work in a place which was 300 hectares of almond trees, and they were spending $3,500 a week of water. So you want a bit of a balance. And in Perth, it doesn't rain much, 30 days a year pretty much. If you go somewhere like New South Wales, Byron Bay was perfect actually. It rains a bit more. If you want cold and mountains, you go to Tasmania. There are beautiful mountains and tracks. And this is the one thing I miss the most. There is a mountain 6 hours inland from here, which is called Bluff Knoll, which I went on top of. It's probably a 40 minutes hike on top, and if you wake up at 4:30, start at 4:45, 5, you get up for sunrise. It's beautiful, but then you come back because that's it. There is nothing else. And in Italy, I'm used to driving half an hour and being on trails that lead you to 1,800, or driving a few hours and getting to 2,000, 3,000 meters mountains, which are beautiful. You can ski as well. And here you don't have this opportunity, which I miss a lot. So I'm always back and forth on calling this place home for the rest of my life. But the good thing is that you can pick your own environment and being within the same country. And if you don't like cold, cold, maybe you migrate for 6 months up north and you come back, and you have different time zones. Here, we don't change the legal time. In other parts of Australia, they do. According to Italy and Europe, it's 6 hours forward right now, and then it just moves 1 hour plus, so 7 hours forward compared to Europe, depending on how they change. But here, we never change. So in summer, maybe it gets dark at 9 p.m., while in Europe, in summer, it gets dark at 10:30, 10, 11, midnight if you go to Scandinavia. And here, it's not the same feeling, you know. Growing up, I was lucky enough to grow in a close neighborhood far from the city, 2 kilometers. And I grew up with the same friends that I'm still in contact and very good friend with today. We used to play soccer in summer until 10 p.m. And then my mom was yelling from the window to come back home. No phones, nothing. And you bond with people that will be your friends for the rest of your life. And here the thing I struggle with the most is connecting with people, like deep connections. Because I grew up in Italy and we speak in a certain way. We speak of deep topics, we sit down, we take our time, we ask important questions, crucial conversations, you know. And here the thing I struggle with the most is, and I thought I was the crazy one until I started confronting myself with Europeans and South Americans, is that whenever you call somebody for a beer, for some chitty-chatty and shallow conversations, everybody are available. But when you try to go deeper, open up, maybe you're crying, you're calling them, you're faced with a lot of sympathy and not too much empathy. And if you're watching this and you're Australian, it's nothing personal. It's just the way it is and the way I started accepting things. And if this is not you, cool, amazing. Because I still have great friends here that are Australians and I love them. I connected with them a lot. But considering I've been here for 15 years and I cannot count my Australian friends in two hands, it's funny. And I thought that was the problem. But maybe a game of two parties, the problem is in the middle. And the same happened with Australian women. Now we are talking also about dating and relationships. I've been dating left and right for many years of my life. A lot of casual dating and stepping into short and long relationships with Australians as well. And what I notice is that whenever there is a problem, you either walk away from the problem or you don't talk about it until things become so big that they eventually explode in your face and they compromise the relationship, and then you walk away from it. But there are no crucial conversations. And my adult me, that now can qualify as a grounded man, which is still learning, I'm still learning, but would have managed things in a better way. I haven't been in a relationship with an Australian in 5 years. My last one was German, European. We had a lot of meeting points and commonalities. Also talking with other people, I found the same patterns of shallow behaviors and conversations. And shallow doesn't have to be negative in itself. It's just not exploring the depths that relationship can lead to. And in the next relationship I will have, I will definitely bring these into it. Hopefully it will be welcomed and reciprocated. And most of the people I was hanging out or dating was European or South American, because we grew up in a similar way. There is the table culture in my country where you sit down at the table and you spend 1-2 hours there and you talk and you connect. And here the first family I lived with was in Molumbimbi. The mom was making food. The daughter, 18 years old, was taking the food and going to her room because the mom was going to the room in the first place. And on Christmas Day, the daughter started crying because she wanted to spend time with the mom. And the mom said, I want to go with Mark driving the bicycle. I still remember the name of this guy. And the kid was left with us crying and us reassuring her. And I'm not saying all the families are like this. I met other families and they were lovely. But this struck me. And I started thinking, is this the exception or the rule? And I really hope it's the exception. But this was my experience. It's hard to integrate. And I know of a German friend that now is considering, after almost 20 years living here, to come back to Germany because he cannot connect with any women here. Not in the way he wants. So it depends on you, how much you are willing to compromise, the boundaries you want to set, and what you are happy to give up. What I like to think is the standards I developed over the years is that I'm not dropping anymore for people. I'm giving a hand for them to raise to my level. And this is not patronizing, just if I don't like to smoke or to drink and every time we hang out, you smoke and you drink, maybe we are not meant to be friends because I'm not compromising on my health or my habits for you. There is nothing wrong and nothing good about it. It's just the way it is. Another thing about the weather is that it gets extremely harsh here. You have to be very careful about the sun. And in New Zealand was even worse. I've seen people walking around with an umbrella. But here the one experience I had was going to the beach at 1 p.m. taking a nap because I fall asleep like dogs under the sun. And then I woke up with burning legs. And the day after I had bubbles all over the back of my thighs. And I was putting some pants and I felt some wet. And I went touching and the bubbles burst. And they were releasing water. So if you do this continuously, maybe it creates a damage on your body for sure. So you have to make sure you don't expose yourself under the sun on the peak hours and you get some shade. Sun can be very nasty here. When I first came here was because I wanted to travel the world. And when I first came here, I was so stunned by this place that I decided to come back after 9 months. The first time I tried. And then a few years ago, I fulfilled my long-term dream of traveling around Australia for 9 months, living life without boundaries, without alarms, without restrictions. We went to the comparison of Burning Man here in Western Australia called Blazing Swan. And it was fantastic. We were waking up with dingoes and parrots, and you see places that are surreal. It feels literally to be on another planet, on Mars. If you go to Carigini, for example, you're in the middle of a gorge that is surrounded for hours of driving by complete desert. Or you get inland, and this I found by looking at a map. I found in a map and I said, we will have to go here. And we drove 3 hours to go, 3 hours to come back to find the second biggest crater by meteorite impact in the world. And it was stunning. It was incredible view. And then as you travel across Australia, you go up north and you drive for hours, days of 12 hours of drive, and you don't see anything at all. And then one day when you cross over from the west coast to the Northern Territory to the east coast, we saw in 12 hours drive, we saw the environment completely changing 2 or 3 times, going from desert to palm trees covering the car like a ceiling, and it was beautiful. And you realize you can travel for 10 lifetimes and you will not see everything that is here. And there are some places that are filled with such an energy. We went to a land privately owned by Aboriginal people, where you can park your car, pay for the night, they can deliver breakfast if you want, and we had the craziest dreams I ever had in my life. Vivid, lucid dreams, deep dreams. And we woke up a bit overwhelmed. And my ex-girlfriend and I, we said to each other, I think it was the energy of the place. This pristine place with nothing but vegetation and a house in the back from the family, starry sky and a river close by and the sound of nature. With nothing for hours and hours. Beautiful. And it's such a gift to be able to call this place home. Yeah, finally. Here things can get isolating, pretty lonely. So as I was saying before, it's gonna be good for you to develop some friendships and some connections from your home country. So you can meet with people every now and then and talk about the things you want to talk and eating similar food and rejoice in that together. Find some connections points and talk in your own language, which is always great. It's always great to find a stranger and hear your own language. And as an adult, I know that it takes 80 hours of direct exposition to a person to form a friendship. And now I don't have any friendships, but they are great. They are good friends I can rely on. So as soon as you arrive, try to find some people you can grow with, because chances are as you grow and you will transform, so will your friendships, because you will set different boundaries. So it's good to find a good social circle of healthy people you can grow with, and they will respect you and will nurture you and will help you to get the best version of yourself, as they say. But really, to move forward, because in life, if you don't move forward, you're moving backwards. So it's very hard, I found, to get part of a social circle of Australians that grew up together. So you hang up once, maybe a few times, and then people disappear. And I always try to invest as much time as I could into finding people again, texting every now and then. But if I see there is no return of investment, I usually stop. And before I was chasing a lot, but there is no point. Time is limited. So if you want to be there, you try once or twice, and then if the commitment is not there, you give up. But this is a good filter as well going forward, because you set your boundaries, and you set your boundaries on the people that invest the time back as well. On the long run, I understand that this life is not for everybody. This place is very isolated from the rest of the world. It takes a long time to travel to anywhere. If I come from my home city to here is gonna be 21 hours of travel, 17 of flight. Family is distant, and you see all your friends and their families growing older. And last time I came back home, the previous time was 2019, and then I went to Japan for a month. And I thought I will be back home in a few months, and then COVID hit. So back then in 2019, I wasn't be able to go back until 2023, which means I haven't been back home for 5 years. And if your parents are 50 or 60, 5 years is a long time. And when I came back, I thought, fuck, they aged so much, they even shortened a little bit. And I wanted to be present a bit more. But when I came back, I tried for 2 years to live in Europe, and I couldn't. It's just different. You get used for 15 years to certain dynamics and the way of life, and you come back and the contrast, you can either adapt to the way life was or feel the contrast and think, no, it's not for me anymore. And for me, it was option 2. So I came back here. I hope this video will help you to do whatever you want to do here, to explore, to shorten the time you need to figure out things, to find some opportunities. And I wanted to make this because having lived in 4 different countries, it's extremely important to have shortcuts in finding things easier, because it means more opportunity, more money, more connections, and an easier way to integrate. And I think as a part of self-individuality, freedom, whatever you want to call it, the place where you choose to live is extremely important. It's basically picking the kind of life you want, but also the kind you are giving to eventually your children. So you have to consider this place. And for me, I know I'm growing up to be a person like Diocletian, the Roman emperor that gave up on power to grow his own garden. And when he was asked to come back to Rome, he said, if you saw the kind of cauliflower I'm growing, you wouldn't asking me to come back to power. And I'm feeling I'm transitioning into that part of my life. My goal is to form a community of like-minded people and buy land and build a house and grow a veggie patch in there and become completely self-sustainable. I will find my way to that. So this place with the lack of water, I don't know if it's long-term is going to be the place, but there are areas like Margaret River or other places in Australia, so time will tell. But I hope this video will help you to find your way to this beautiful country. Every video in this channel is a piece of the puzzle to get you closer to a life of freedom. So if you got some value out of this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.